Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Conversations about Art. My name is Alan Constant. I live in Albuquerque, and I'm here with Paul Rowland, who lives right outside of Tokyo, Japan. Today, we're going to be talking to Andrea Lopez. She's a mixed media artist from Vancouver. So, welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Paul, for having me here today. It's really a pleasure. I love your interviews. I've learned so much from listening to all the artists, and it's really an honor to be here. So thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you with us. We'd like to start the conversation and just ask you about your art background, how you got involved in art, and how you got to where you are today in your art career.
Yes, pretty much a non-conventional way, I will say. I think I always knew I was an artist since I was a child, but growing up in Colombia, in a family with limited financial resources and not much exposure to art, made art for me non-realistic. At that time, when it was time to choose a career, my options were either to be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor, and being a doctor was what resonated with me the most. So I went to med school in Colombia, and after that, I came to the States to pursue a career in pediatrics, and that was about 25 years ago. Becoming a doctor in this country and practicing medicine in this country is pretty demanding and challenging. So all my energy went into building my career. Art just went to the back burner. I really didn't do any art until probably 2020 when the pandemic occurred, and I took some time off to go and visit my family in Charleston, South Carolina, and decided to work on a large painting that I have done a couple of years before. During that week, I had to wake up every day very early and worked all day on the painting because I had only 1 week to finish it. And I just loved it. I just realized, that painting brought me so much joy and made me so grounded and happy. And I decided that I was going to take this seriously for the first time. And so I went back home and signed up for a mixed media workshop online. And that was October 10th, 2020. And I haven't stopped painting since. I have taken a lot more workshops since then, but I'm kind of obsessed with it. I heard this mantra the other day in a movie. It was like, obsession beats talent, and I feel like that's my mantra. So yeah, it's been quite an amazing journey. About 2 years ago, I made the decision to leave medicine and go into painting and to being an artist as a full-time career, and then the rest is history. Here we are. Yeah.
So, do you have a gallery that represents you right now?
Yeah, I am part of Waterstone Gallery. Is a co-op in Portland, Oregon. So Portland, I live in Vancouver, Washington, and we are very close to Portland. It's only about 15 minutes away. Portland has a richer artistic community and scene, and so most of my work I show in Portland, and I'm part of this co-op where I show my work currently. Yes. And then I also participate in different shows and art festivals throughout the year. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, let's take a look at your work now. This is the first piece we're looking at. Does this one have a title?
Um, yes. It's called La Tua Casa, which means your home in Italian.
Hmm.
This was part of a sketchbook paintings that I made. I decided to start a challenge back in October to work on my sketchbook every day for 30 days. And this was one of those pieces from that sketchbook. It's made of collage. And so I started with pieces of collage. I usually go with color. That's what inspires me. So the colors I love, I start putting together and then, continue playing and, changing things. This one surprisingly didn't go through a lot of changes. It came out very organically and I love it pretty quick, and left it as it was. I just added some color on the sides and the lines. But yeah, it's a beautiful piece that I love very much.
So what size is this?
This is 11 by 14.
So when you start, do you have an idea of a direction you want to go, or do you just start laying color and pieces down and see where it evolves?
Yeah, it's more of like I have all these collage papers, and I just let's say I start with a combination of colors that I love. Like I see something on the street, I'm driving and I see, I don't know, two colors together in the back of a truck or something like that. And that gives me an idea, and I make notes and I take pictures, and then when I'm in the studio, then I start putting those colors together. And I try to remain aware of using different sizes, right? Because we tend to cut everything the size of our hand, right? And so I try to, make larger pieces and smaller pieces, cut them either by hand, just by tearing them up, or using my scissors just to create more differences. And so I usually start just with a combination of a couple of colors that I find very interesting. I try to use a little bit of pattern too. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like how it starts. So I don't really have an idea in mind. Just that didn't start as, okay, I'm gonna paint something that resembles a home or a house, or a structure. I just start with colors, and then the shapes start evolving and showing up in the work.
And so the title, Your House, how does it relate to this image? Does it remind you of your house somehow?
Yeah, so when I look at it, what I see is like the shape of a house, of a little house. And I guess it's because a lot of those elements show up in my work. Like if you look at previous work of mine, you'll see I tend to paint little houses a lot. When I started, and I was using more water-based oils, I used to paint landscapes, and there was always a little house in them. To me, this looks like a little house. Yeah. It has kind of like a square rectangular shape, and it has that little door at the bottom. Yeah, so I see a house here.
Sounds
But it's
good.
great that you don't. It's great that you don't. That makes me very happy because, that means to me, that means it's abstract. I started as a more representational artist and always wanting to do more abstract work, and I feel like I'm finally getting there.
Well, I can definitely see the house that you're talking about, but when I first saw it, I wasn't thinking of a house. So it's nice that you can go either way with it. Okay, let's look at the next one. Paul, do you have any questions about this?
First of all, I absolutely love the color in this one. And that wonderful little red bar at the bottom right really just sets everything off. But I'd love to ask you about the lines that you use. You had that kind of squiggly line, almost like a river or some sort of um, uh, letter almost. But in this one, you've got more straight lines, but there's a bit of a squiggle at the top left. Um, Tell me about lines in your work.
So I feel like I think I intentionally introduce line into my work because I feel like it's easy for me to do a lot of shapes, especially square shapes and solid colors. But when it comes to line, I tend to forget about it. And so I'm mindful of that, and I try to use different things to create lines. And I use like a painting guide to make more straight lines. And then I use pencils, like color pencils, to just scribble. I love scribbling in my work. I'm a right hand person, and I try to use my left hand to scribble. And that's kind of like, and sometimes I use also a ruler to make more straight lines as well with a pencil. And yeah, so that's kind of like how I introduce lines into my work, but it's very intentional in a way sometimes.
I'm intrigued by you saying you use your left hand. And I also liked what you said before about choosing different pieces so it's not always the same size as your hands might be. Can you tell us more about that approach?
Sometimes when you are making a collage, you tend to use shapes that are almost the same size. It's kind of like a brain thing, I guess. And they happen to be the same size as our fist. And so I'm trying to break out of that, be conscious of it, and cut some shapes that are that size, but also have larger size shapes and tiny, size shapes, just to introduce differences into the work, and always try to have like a larger thing that is gonna kind of like become the focus point. Like in this case, that big blue square shape on the right upper corner is kind of like my focus point, right? Oh, I don't know if I explained it right to you, or if that was the question that you were asking exactly.
Oh yeah, you do. It's fascinating. I'm just interested by the physicality of it and how you were very conscious of varying it up, so not to get like stuck in a rut of being controlled by your brain and your body. I like that variety you introduced, but I was also
Mhm.
intrigued by why you were using your left hand to scribble as well.
Oh yeah, is just because it's more loose, is more random, is less controlling, and I think that's always something that I'm looking for to express in my work. I want it to be bold, and I want it to be less controlling, less, I can see when something is very tight, when, something I make is very tight. It was made with fear because the work feels different. And when I do the scribble and I just, do whichever marks they come out, it feels more free to me. And that's kind of like what I'm going for.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the fact that I've always been a very anxious person since I was a child, and I'm always, looking to break fear, to be fearless, and this is my way to be fearless through my work.
When you were just talking about using your left hand and trying to break through your patterns, it made me wonder if your career in pediatrics has affected the way you approach art.
Absolutely. Yes. I think practicing medicine is a very left hemisphere function, versus making art. It's like with art, you have to be more intuitive and more free and more careless in a way. Uh, when you practice medicine, when you're a physician, you have to be very, very careful about what you do. In a way, it's like you learn to be a perfectionist. And so yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what, that's what I love doing this more than anything else, is because it breaks me from that, from trying to be a perfectionist, and those things still happen, of course, in the work. But that's my goal. But yeah, especially at the beginning, I think it had a big influence on me, and I feel like now, as time has passed, I feel like I am more free and more intuitive when it comes to my work. I don't overanalyze things as much as I used to. Coming from the medical field, you tend to analyze and overanalyze and try to make sense of everything. And in art, there are things that are never gonna make sense, just like in life.
But as a doctor, you worked with children, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was thinking it's almost like with art, you're unlearning your adult patterns and trying to become a child again, free like a child.
Right. Exactly. That is exactly right.
And so, what's the title of this piece?
I don't think this one has a title, Alan. Maybe I'll call it just 1485, like the number over down there.
Does that number mean anything?
No, it doesn't. Sometimes I introduce numbers and letters and words into my work because I like that graphic aspect of it. But I try not to make them mean anything because really I don't want them to mean anything. I just like the graphic, sense of it. And so yeah, no, the number doesn't mean anything. Most of the times it's just random numbers that show up because of the collage that I use or something like that.
Oh, so now you have some text in this one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So that is collage
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. And yeah, I apply some paint on it but it's more translucent because of the color. And so you can see some of the words coming through.
When you started a piece like this, were you thinking, okay, I'm going to work with paint and collage, or did you start like with paint and then decide you wanted to throw some collage in there?
No, it's clear to me that I rather start with paint and collage, and most of the times it's collage first. So the paper goes down first,
Hmm.
and then I use paint for the middle and final stages. These are paintings from my sketchbook.
Do you work mostly in your sketchbook, or do you do larger images also?
No, it's been a new thing for me to work on my sketchbook. I didn't do much of a sketchbook work before, but the few times that I've done it, I've realized how free it is for me and how free it feels for me and how helpful it is. It's like there's nothing precious. I'm not afraid of making mistakes or anything like that. And so I come up with better work. And so that's why I decided to challenge myself and do this for like 30 days in a row. But usually I just paint on canvas or a wood panel. Yeah, that's kind of like what I do most of the times. But now that I've, done this and that I really love it, my goal is to continue, working on my sketchbook every day. And the other day I just, got a sale and got 2 for 1. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm doing this. Because yeah, I feel like some of, my best works have come from the sketchbook practice.
When I was taking a look at the paintings that you shared before, these ones, a strange thing happened to me. I was looking at the lines again, and my eye wandered down to the bottom left, and I was intrigued by the white lines that you use, also in the previous picture as well. And then suddenly, the text that's almost obscured by the paint just was revealed to me. It was almost like an archaeological dig, and I just uncovered something under the dirt. So I loved the sense of discovery and the layers in this one as well. When you talked about the fact that you originally come from Colombia, I'm really
Mhm.
intrigued to hear about how your Colombian heritage has maybe affected your art.
Yeah, definitely. I brought my love for color and for bold and vibrant colors from, growing up in Colombia. At the beginning, when I started painting, I used more saturated colors. And I think that's because that's what I loved, right? And that's what I used to see, there growing up is part of our culture, right? Just, joyful, vibrant, happy, I think that's how we cope with how things are otherwise in Colombia in terms of economy and politics and all that stuff. People tend to just, party and have fun and make things joyful, right? And that's what I brought from there. And as time has passed, my palette has become more muted in a way, and I feel like harmonized also because I learned how to harmonize colors, and so now I use that when it comes to my work. It feels old, I think because of all the texture, maybe. This one is I call it catching the bouquet because what I see here is a figure that green, really saturated, light green or light yellow circle in the middle with a little tiny red dot is like a girl who is running towards the red flower, the red scribble on the right. And that is, her catching the bouquet. So that's another thing that I bring from my culture is a wild imagination and the whimsical, aspect of my work. Like I love telling stories with my work. And that also comes from, growing up in Colombia.
I was also intrigued by when you said you were driving along and you might see a color or some sort of pattern and take a picture or make a record of it and maybe use it as inspiration later. This one looks like a wall in the background, the upper left. And maybe it's like graffiti that someone's painted out or something. Do you remember the inspiration for this piece?
This piece started probably with layers of green and different type of greens. You can tell that there is sort of a monochromatic palette, here, and that's kind of like how it started because that's one of the things I do sometimes is I use a limited palette, and I like monochromatic palettes. That's kind of how I start. And then, it evolves into something else, and I introduce other colors and pattern and more texture and more collage. But I think it started like that with a monochromatic palette, and that's probably what inspired it. Some, green, yellow monochromatic palette. And then the white came after, to kind of like close that space and isolate this shape right on the right side. But I love texture as much as I love color, and that is very prominent throughout my work. I love all walls and walls that have been washed and touched by weather and changed by weather. And I love like the old walls that you see throughout Europe, and to me that's just gorgeous. And so I use I want to have a lot of that in my work, and that's what it came from. Yeah, because sometimes I'm driving, I'm right behind a truck, and they're all like white, but they're all dirty and washed by the rain. And I love that. I love all those marks that I see there.
This one, I see some animal life.
So yeah, again, is me telling a story. This one is a painting on canvas. So this is a more elaborated work. Like it took, more time. It was not a sketchbook painting. Is a large piece, also is a 30 by 40 inches piece. Yeah, it also started kind of like that with pieces of collage put together that, then adding paint and shapes start evolving and, to me just looked like a landscape. So I started adding the shape of the animals. And yeah, it's a story for me.
You have a lot of different visual elements, but they all seem cohesive. They all seem to work together really well. Is it hard to get to that point where you feel like it all works together?
Yeah, it's like a puzzle. And I'm gonna tell you the truth, I'm no great with puzzles. So and I don't love puzzles necessarily. But that's how it feels. It's like you start fixing one part and then you need to fix the other part, right? And sort of like make it work together and make it cohesive and make some sense. Because like you said, it's a lot of things going on. Yeah.
To me, it all works together really well.
It takes time and patience. There are days when I can paint for 6, 7 hours and be exhausted and do and accomplish some, but usually going to bed, sleeping, and getting up the next day, it helps a lot. Like your mind definitely rests and gets fresh, and is easier to come up with changes.
So I noticed this one is called Animal Farm. So I see what could be fields in here. I see what could be a barn. I mean, are all these elements of a farm that you're putting into this image?
Yes, like to me, some of the shapes are trees and some are like a little house down there. A lot of organic elements. There's a little house down at the bottom, and then the animals, and then like a big mountain, on the top, and the cloud.
This one and the last one, and I think maybe the next one as well, have like quite a strong synesthetic effect on me. I can taste things. I'm almost like I'm in a sweet shop or something like that. Sometimes I can, hear things in paintings, when you've got like musical elements and rhythm. But in your paintings, the overwhelming feeling is of taste. Does that mean anything to you? Like, do you listen to music while you paint? Do you feel as though the colors have tastes or anything like that, or am I just speaking rubbish?
No, no, you're right. You're right. I when I paint, when I, put my colors down, and I can smell the paint, and I love it. To me, it's like, like if I could eat it, I will eat it, of course. But I can tell what, I can see what you're saying. I can relate to that because yeah, I think is color. Color is energy, and that's what really light me up and makes me feel alive. And it's kind of like food, right? It's what keeps us alive, right? And so I can see the analogy here. Yeah, absolutely.
I love the way you talk about painting because sometimes in conversations like this, I don't think Alan and I fall into it too often, but you can get into the technical details too much or analyzing. Like you said before, one of the dangers of maybe, going into medicine is you might analyze too much and then you don't look at the big picture, maybe see the whole patient in front of you. But I love the very tactile way that you talk about painting very real to you, very physical. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm also intrigued about other people's reactions. What are the responses that people have to your work?
Yeah, so what people mainly says is that it makes them happy. It brings joy, like the colors makes them happy. It's like your work is just very whimsical, very joyful. That's what they like it, right? It's like they want to look at something, at home that makes them feel alive and or makes them curious and intriguing. And like they some people say, every time I look at it, I find something different. I find something that I didn't see before. And answering to your question, I do listen to music when I paint. Not all the time. Sometimes I really need silence to figure something out. But a lot of the times I use music, especially at the beginning when I'm starting and everything is more loose and more careless. I love listening to music because it makes me happy, it brings me energy, it makes me move my body while I paint. And I think that transfer into the piece, into the painting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that joy, that freedom, that looseness, it's very evident in your work.
Thank you.
This one is called Blue Pillow. So I'm the only blue I see in there doesn't look like a pillow. So I'm kind of wondering the relationship of the title to the image.
Yeah, because Alan, to me, that blue shape looks like a pillow because because it's rounded, and kind of geometric, and then the shape behind that velvet red shape is to me a sofa, kind of like an interior painting where you have the sofa and the pillow, and then there's like maybe a frame with a flower on top, like kind of like falling off from the wall.
The red and the salmon color, the red stripes reminds me of a bed. So and I think I got that
Uh-huh.
from the blue pillow. Maybe the blue pillow fell on the floor. So that's what
Yeah.
I love about abstract work is that there you can go in so many different directions with it.
Yeah.
None of them are wrong.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah, it was great.
Oh wow, this is really fun. The title is Flor Pallida. What does that mean?
Flor pálida, yeah.
Flor Pallida.
I think I call it that way because I call it flor pálida because of the shape. at the bottom, that rounded shape it looks to me like a flower. And Flor Pálida is the name of one of my favorite songs. It's a song by Mark Anthony. He's a Puerto Rican singer. It was a song that I danced with my father on my wedding day. And so it's very special to me. And I saw that flower shape, and I decided to call it that way because it's one of my favorite paintings.
How recent is this particular piece?
I think I finished this one sometime April or May, probably.
Of 2025, correct?
Yeah, this year. All this work is probably from this year.
I asked that because all of the images we're looking at feel like there's a maturity to them, like you have the ability to make all the elements work together. When you first started, did you just jump in and have a good sense of composition, or did it take time to really develop that?
I think I have a good sense of color and texture. Like I think that came to me very easily. I don't think I had a good sense of composition at the beginning. I don't think I had a good sense of composition at the beginning. I think that's something that I've been learning, and I'm still learning. So that's something that I've been working on it when, take my workshops, and all that is trying to tune up my composition skills. But yeah, color comes easy and texture comes easy, but no, not necessarily composition.
This looks slightly different to some of the others for me for some reason. Maybe it's the little white trees on that park.
Mhm.
Somehow I zoom out and I feel like I'm not so close to the picture as I am with many of your other paintings
Mhm.
and collages. I feel like I'm flying above a city or something like that. What do you see in this one?
Yeah, so this one is also kind of like a landscape to me, like the green area, but it feels aerial in a way. It feels aerial, like you're above, right? Like you're flying above. And yeah, so I see like the green part is like trees, like a big piece of grass with trees. Then the shapes on the right side that are kind of like be like a light yellow color. Those are kind of like flowers or organic, shapes. And then the big scribble on the left is like a big cloud. And then the right shape, which is kind of like light lemon, light green yellow, or light yellow color shape, looks more like a structure, like it could be a building or something like that. So yeah, to me it looks like a park somewhere.
Absolutely, I can see that. And I feel like I'm one of those people flying in one of Marc Chagall's paintings, and I'm flying above some kind of city landscape. Maybe two of the pictures before, I really thought of Matisse as well. I think it's something to do with the color and the flatness of it. And I'd love to know who are some of your artistic heroes? Who's in the back of your mind when you're working?
So yeah, Matisse is one of them. Van Gogh is another one. Painters who are alive. There's Danny Gretcher. He's from Germany. I love his work too. It's very whimsical and lots of color. There's another painter in Australia, Ashley Holmes. She's also wonderful. I love her work, but her work's a lot more subtle. But I like that too. Hope Olson is another artist I follow on Instagram that I love also her work.
I can see that. And thank you for giving me the names of a few more artists. One of the wonderful things of doing these interviews is just it sprouts off into other directions. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
I want to tell you that about this one is called Watermelon, even though it has not much to do with a park or an, aerial view of a park. And it is because my husband, who is a photographer and is someone who actually has taught me about composition a lot, he looked at it and he thought, oh, this is like a watermelon. And I didn't really think so, right? But then I start looking at it more and more, and yeah, it's like those black triangles are like the seeds, and there's a little bit of red and there's a little bit of green, and then I decided, yeah, I like it. I think I'm gonna call it watermelon.
That's perfect. Yeah, I can see a watermelon now, and I can't see anything else. I want to live in this watermelon.
So I do see the aerial aspect of this, but again,
Mhm.
when you started this, were you going for that, or did you just kind of build it by putting different elements in, and then this is just how it ended up?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I just start with like colors that I like. I probably with this one started with the light yellow and then the darker green together because again, it's like me and using a monochromatic palette. And I think I have made those black triangles were part of a stencil that I made myself, and I wanted to use it, and so I just added that, and then I, went from there. And but yeah, I don't have like I didn't have a aerial landscape in mind when I started this. No, no at all.
I think this is my favorite one. It does remind me of landscape, but I like the palette you're using here, and I love your use of red on the right side. So tell us
Mhm.
about this piece, where this came from, and what it means for you.
This one started with texture. And so I was just using white and on top of a bunch of black scribbles that I have done on a piece of sketchbook paper. So the first layer was like just scribbles, with black paint. And then I went back with layers of white, and then I use a glazed. And that's what gives that kind of like yellowish, tone on the big shape in the middle. And then I made this stencil that looked initially it was meant to be more like rounded shapes resembling fruits. But when you turn it the other way around, they look more like trees. And so I use that. I just added to the painting. And it just, I think I did some of those drips. And then I started seeing kind of like a shape of an animal. And so I took it from there and I just pursue that. And it became that is to me, this is an animal. This is an animal that is looking at me right now. The ladders, that red ladder on the right is an element that is also very present in my paintings. I paint ladders a lot. It's a symbolism of wanting to get better at what you do. Yeah, and so I wanted it to be red because that was a nice contrast with the white and the black. But this painting was one that came out also relatively easy. I didn't have to do a lot on this one. And that's a great feeling to have, really, when that happens.
The title is Cordero. So what does Cordero mean?
Cordero means sheep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that.
I do a lot of scribble and scratching, but I wanted to tell you something because this one, so when I send it to you, I probably call it Cordero because that's an easy way for me to remember the piece. And then I sold this to another artist, and he wanted to know what the title was, and I forgot that it was Cordero. And then I say, I don't think I have a title. And he says, just think about it and let me know. And then looking at photos of this painting, I remember seeing that I have written che felicità, which means what happiness in Italian, because I'm learning Italian, and so I tend to repeat the words, whenever I remember. And so I wrote down somewhere in this painting that phrase, che felicità, because that's how I felt when I was making this. I was very happy. I was very proud of it. And so I ended up calling it Che Felicità, and that's the title of the painting.
I just wanted
Great.
to just add, in contrast to the joyful feeling that I get from many of your other pictures and the title you've given this, when you described it as a sheep, suddenly I saw that, but then I see the sheep's face as a
Uh-huh.
human face, at the top left, a kind of like a very sad, maybe shocked human face. And then I can see those black shapes at the top, shadows of people who are coming, and their heads are cut off at the top of the frame, and they're
Oh,
coming to buy, to slaughter, to eat this sheep. And so this one has a kind of almost nightmarish feel to me. So again, it's just amazing how a piece of abstract work can take on so much meaning. And maybe it tells you more about me and you than the thing itself. But
yeah,
yeah, it's really powerful to me, this one.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite moving actually. I really feel for the sheep because we're on the same level as the sheep. Yeah, so wow.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, yeah, that's fascinating to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love the graphic quality of this piece, and it looks like there's collage in here, but I like those little turquoise blobs in the lower right side.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's what makes this piece. It was kind of like the last thing I did, and I knew I had to do something like that because, the two shapes, they're two big shapes, the upper part and the bottom one, like the upper the upper part was made with craft paper, and the bottom one was collage paper. And then I went back with a stencil and that I made myself and painted those turquoise, light turquoise shapes, little shapes on top. But there were those two big shapes that were kind of like competing in a way, they were almost the same size. So I needed something to get the tension out of it. And that's why I did those blots, the turquoise spots there. Yeah, this one I think I call it a night out dress or the night out outfit or something like that. Because to me, what I see here is like a dress that you have kind of folded and have it ready before you go out, and you put it on your bed, you lay it out on your bed, and you have it ready there to get dressed before you go out. The stitches part, like if you look at the upper shape, the one made with craft paper, one on the left, which is kind of like a sleeve. And then I made those tiny, lines there that to me look like stitches. And I love that detail too. I made another piece out of this one. So this one inspired another one in which I only focus on the upper part of the painting and make those stitches the focal point of the painting. I grew up my parents had like a small factory. They made clothes, like sport clothes. And so I think that's why I love texture so much because I grew up surrounded by different textiles and sewing machines and stuff like that. And so I think that also is a dear part of my work.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time once again.
Yeah, this was delightful. Thank you so much.
Well, for me, I love these conversations because it takes me deeper into specific pieces. It helps me to appreciate them. And then I take little kernels of wisdom or inspiration from each talk. And I got a lot out of this one. So thank you so much, Andrea.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really honored to be here because I follow your interviews and you interview really great artists, and I learned so much from that, from listening to their process and their, the way they create their work and why they create it, and is really very helpful. So thank you both for doing what you do.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. That's really good to hear. It's nice that people are getting something out of it. So
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Please keep doing it.